Hello, my name is Samuel Poole, and today we will be reviewing my crops and the challenges I faced during this greenhouse management course. It was an interesting ride, and I'm really glad to see the side of ornamentals when it comes to horticulture. So first, we're going to start with poinsettias. We got them as cuttings, and we planted them into these pre-forma substrate, and then we potted them up into a 6-inch pot. These 6-inch pots were then left under a mist bench for several weeks just to allow them to take and get the rooting they need before they're able to really be moved into our side of the greenhouse where they could actually sustain several days without water. We noticed early on that these poinsettias needed a lot of nutrition, and that caused us to change our fertilization rate and also how much we fertilize every day, which you can tell it really paid off in the end. Next, we have our monsteras. Our monsteras in the beginning were kind of funny. We received them as a donation from James' greenhouse. The box that came in had mica in them, and there was dirt, and it was really interesting to see because we're like skeptical they even germinate. And what do you know? After 3 weeks, we saw germination, and it was exciting. I think almost all of my seeds germinated, and they're gorgeous. All of them seem healthy, no issues. We go on to our Gerber daisies. Our Gerber daisies we received as plugs. We planted these plugs into 606 trays, and then we moved them into 6-inch pots, which we only moved 9, so we picked our 9 favorite ones, and you're going to see how gorgeous they turned out after heavy fertilization, just like the poinsettias. We started them at the same rate of nitrogen at 150 ppm of nitrogen at a 1 to 100 concentration ratio. We then doubled that, moving them 300 ppm of nitrogen, and watered them the same as poinsettias, which you could really tell with the green foliage and these beautiful flowers. It really paid off. We then move on to our perennials. These were such a challenge. There was such, especially when they got a lot bigger, keeping them watered was so difficult, especially on my side of the greenhouse. It got really hot, and there's a lot more sun exposure, and the ventilation there was not the greatest because the pad was the furthest away from the center, and it also was closest to the edge of the greenhouse. So here again is my perennials. You can tell this is them on a sad day. It was very hard to keep them watered, especially in the small trays that they're in, and it really taught me the importance of potting up your plants when it needs to happen. Next, onto our succulents. We also received these as cuttings, and it was really interesting to see how fast they actually took root. You just place them on top of dirt and you just water them, and they just take off. They're very resilient. Another thing I really learned from this was that succulents need water, and succulents, when they actually get water and fertilizer, they take off and they look gorgeous. I mean, in the beginning, you think of succulents as these plants that really don't need any type of fertilization and are more like that plant you just ignore. We then planted perennial and annual herbs. We planted mountain mint, Greek oregano, and winter thyme. We then, for annual herbs, we planted aroma basil, santo cilantro, spicy bush basil. I actually wasn't here for the pot up for these. Land and I were at Greenhouse 13 taking care of our substrate project, but Alan graciously stepped in for me and took over. So here's an overview of after a couple weeks of the germination. And here's my beautiful bench before we had to get rid of a lot of our plants. And for the rest of the video, I'm just going to be showing you the outcome of our plants. Thank you so much again, Dr. Ferrezzi. It was a wonderful experience, and I'm so glad, like I said in the beginning of the video, that I got to see the ornamental side of horticulture, and it has really actually brought me a liking to it. And hopefully one day when I do have a greenhouse or whatever I do end up doing, that I will bring this into my life. Thank you so much.